Back in the 18th century, a theologian named Thomas Boston put together this incredibly detailed and, frankly, terrifying argument for eternal damnation. So today, we're going to break that down, piece by piece, to really understand how a concept like this was constructed. And it all starts here. This one single verse from the Gospel of Matthew is the bedrock, the absolute foundation for the entire argument we're about to explore. Everything that follows is basically an interpretation and a massive expansion of these very words. So as I said, the man behind this was Thomas Boston, and he took this one sentence and built an entire system of thought around it. We're going to treat this like a historical document, really digging into the logic he used to create such a powerful vision of the afterlife. So that leads us to our big question, right? What are the actual building blocks of his argument? How did each piece connect to create such a complete and horrifying picture of damnation? Let's start with the verdict itself. Okay, so the very first piece of this puzzle in Boston's argument is the final verdict. He doesn't just describe it as a sentence, but as this permanent binding state that he calls the curse. Now, according to the text, this isn't just something that happens when you die. Oh no, it's a state you're supposedly born into. You live under it, and you carry it with you into the afterlife. It's a permanent, inescapable binding to divine wrath. And what's so fascinating is how specific he gets. He breaks down all this misery into two main categories. You have the punishment of loss, which is all about what's taken away from you, and then you have the punishment of torment, which is about what is actively done to you. So let's start with the punishment of loss. In Boston's framework, this is actually considered the ultimate evil because it represents a complete and total separation from what he defines as the ultimate good, which is, of course, God. Boston lays out exactly what this separation feels like with four, devastating characteristics. First, it's involuntary. The damned are desperate to stay but are driven away. Second, it's total. Not a single glimmer of divine favor gets through. Third, it's final. There's zero hope of ever going back. And maybe the cruelest part of all, this state is made worse by the constant, torturous memory of every single chance you had for salvation and lost. All right, so that's the lost part. The second half of this misery is the punishment of torment. And here, the focus shifts from that spiritual loss to the direct, physical, sensory experience of suffering. Now, Boston makes it really clear that this hellfire is nothing like the fire we know on Earth. He claims it pierces the soul itself, not just the body. He says it was specially prepared by God to be an expression of pure justice. It never stops, there's no rest, and no one, not God, not the saints, not even other damned souls, feels any pity for you. And to really drive home the sheer horror of this, Boston uses this incredibly vivid and startling historical analogy, the Valley of Hinnom, where children were sacrificed. He focuses on the detail of drums being beaten to drown out the screams, just to paint a picture of overwhelming, intense suffering. So you've got the loss, you've got the torment, but Boston adds another layer to this whole nightmare: the company you're forced to keep forever. This, to me, is one of the most chilling parts in his argument. The very beings who tempted you into sin in the first place, they become your eternal cellmates. You're locked in the same prison, suffering the same divine wrath, right alongside them. There's just no escape. Okay, so all of these punishments, they're horrible, right? But they all build up to what Boston considers the absolute climax of the whole thing. The one element that makes it all truly absolute, the fact that it's eternal. So what is eternity? I mean, how do you even wrap your head around a concept that has no end? Boston tries to help us grasp this incomprehensible idea by using a series of really powerful metaphors. His first metaphor gives you this sense of just endless vastness. You're hopelessly lost, with no boundary, no destination in sight. The second one really emphasizes the constant, relentless forward motion of time. It just keeps flowing and flowing forever. And the third highlights its inescapable, cyclical nature. There's no beginning, no endpoint to find. You're just stuck in an infinite loop of suffering. And this all leads to a final and frankly terrifying piece of his logic. For the punishment to be eternal, the person being punished also has to be eternal. Boston argues that the damned are never allowed the relief of just ceasing to exist because their conscious suffering is required for the punishment to even have a subject. The worm that never dies, as he puts it, needs a body to live in. So after building this incredibly detailed, horrifying vision, you have to ask, what was the point of it all? Why go to all this trouble? Well, the text itself gives us the answer. And it turns out this whole complex theological system was designed to be a tool. Boston actually called it a use, a method to provoke terror in people, to drive them to change their behavior and convert. It's basically a historical example of scared straight theology. And that really leaves us with a much bigger question, doesn't it? If we step back from this one 18th century text, how do these powerful ideas of eternal consequence, whether we're talking about heaven or hell, how do they still shape our behavior, our art, our cultures, even today?